Another really interesting thing was the topic of protein. So we talk about protein a lot there, and the concept of you can't actually gain weight from protein. As what we know right now, you can't actually gain weight from eating protein.
So it's like free food?
It's kind of
0 points?
It's kind of like free food. So what's interesting is there's a bunch of different studies that have been done, and they've tried to get people to gain weight on just like massive, we're talking like 400 grams of protein a day type diets, and they can't get people to gain weight because they can't physically eat enough. Like they can't do it because they can't eat enough. Like they can't eat enough protein. Your body like naturally.
Did they study anything like protein digestion while doing this too?
No.
Okay.
I think it was just on like the intake. But so it's interesting, right? So anyone that like wants to lose weight, there's a reason why we focus on protein, and that being like whenever we're looking at even at like setting someone's macros or what they should be eating, like protein is the first thing you figure out. First thing you figure out. So if you want to figure out like how much protein you need, like a good rule of thumb off the cuff is about 1 gram per pound of body weight. It's a good place to start. So 150 pound female should have about 150 grams of protein a day. And I bet if we like food journaled, people won't even get there.
I weigh 140 pounds, give or take, and I know for a fact I do not eat 140 grams of protein in a day. Like I am full thinking, like I try and get 100. Like 100 is my goal,
right.
And like I literally feel like I can't eat any more protein. I mean, obviously there's ways to supplement that, like
right.
shakes and stuff like that would be. I'd have to. I'd have to do 2 shakes a day.
So yeah, I mean, so it's interesting, right?
Oh my God.
It's interesting, and so yeah. So I guess if you're looking at fat loss, or even if you're looking at like maintaining muscle, building muscle, like a gram per pound of body weight is a good place to start. If you are like, let's say you have 100 pounds to lose, then we usually look at like your ideal weight. So like, all right, you are 220 and you want to be 170, right? Like we would look at 170, not.
I've never heard the calculation that high for protein.
1 gram per
I always hear
weight.
1 gram per kilo of body weight is what I have heard it in the past.
So there's a range, and so it's like 0.7 to 1 point something.
Yeah. So
is the range.
0.7 is going to be about.
So right. So I mean, you could a lot of times you could start at like the 0.7, 0.75 if you want to make it a little bit easier. So like basically a 200-pound male would be what 150 grams of protein. And so that would put a 150-pound female at what?
120-ish.
Yeah, so still over 100, right?
That's a lot of protein.
So like, and if you are nailing those things, one of the cool things about protein too is it has a satiation effect, right? So it makes us feel full faster. So then we eat less.
And forever.
So,
protein makes me feel full forever.
Yeah, which is a good thing. So like if your goal is weight loss, we need to find ways to get calories out of your diet. So that means that prioritizing protein, making sure you're getting enough protein, will help you be successful.
That's insane.
Yeah. So what I thought was really interesting is they could not get people to gain weight despite how much. And so here's the other thing with protein, right? Is protein is extremely hard to transfer into fat or to create fat out of it. And so
it takes more energy to transfer it. That's just so you guys know what we're saying.
So to digest protein. So to digest protein, it takes like 30% more energy to digest a gram of protein versus a gram of carbohydrate. So one thing, it increases our thermic effect of eating. So we just burn more calories digesting it. So a lot of heat comes off. But then the conversion of taking amino acids and converting them into like free fatty acids that can be stored is an extremely expensive process. And it's just,
and even turning it into glucose is an expensive process as well.
And so it's just not just not done. And so we end up losing a ton. So when we eat a lot of protein, this is one of the things they think they figured out with having excessive amounts of protein in our diet is like you just burn a ton of it off as heat.
So during these studies, were they studying people that wanted to lose weight or people that wanted to gain weight?
They were trying to get them to gain weight. They were doing everything they could to get them to gain weight.
But what was their weight range? Were they
with an excessive amount of protein?
So were they like studies of people like you, or were they studies like people of me? Like,
I don't know. I'll have to find him. So in his presentation, he has like all the references and that kind of stuff. But I'll find him. But it's just super interesting that like they couldn't get people to eat enough protein, and two, they were eating excessive amounts of protein and weren't gaining weight,
Well,
probably because
And
of,
also think of how many, like when you tell someone they need to chew their food 20 to 30 times, it's much easier to chew your food 20 to 30 times when you're eating protein than when you're eating like potatoes.
Right.
Like it's just gonna, the starches are just gonna break down naturally. So like the cessation of like chewing and like the whole process is probably more slowed down as well too.
I'll find some of the info, and maybe we can talk about it next week. But
Now I'm sorry guys, I asked a lot of
it's super
very
interesting.
it's really, if you think about that and you want to lose weight or you're trying not to gain weight, like
Prioritizing protein is the number one thing.
so meaning like the handful of protein, the palm full of protein that we use as our basis for serving size is not going to be enough, because a palm size serving on an average size female is going to be 3 to 4 ounces. 3 to 4 ounces is going to convert to about 20 grams of protein.
Right.
So like you're going to need to eat almost double that at every meal.
Right. So I just think people are under eating. See you, Sue. I think people are under eating, and I think you can get away with eating more protein. Like, so if you're not necessarily feeling full from meals, maybe you're just trying to lose weight, like just eat more protein.
So what are
Eat more
some
protein.
protein things that you would recommend for people to have? They're easy, like grab and go things that you could just have?
Well, one, you need to add more to meals. So, having more meats, that kind of stuff. I think like adding, like if you feel like you have that middle of the day, like have a shake, like just mix up some protein and crush it, some whey, and just crush it. Maybe you have some like strawberries or berries or some nuts or something. I don't know if I'd go with nuts. I would probably just go protein and maybe some veggies and just crush it and just like see what happens. It's kind of like free food in a way. Like that's actually someone in the crowd was like, so like it's kind of like free, right? When we think about like calories, and kind of like in a way.
Which is really crazy. And we don't use a lot of like calorie counting or anything like that here, especially for people, because that's not really our focus. But like if you're thinking about how to you're hungry and you want to add more food, obviously we've decided protein is the way to go.
Yeah, because like the last thing you want to be is hungry, right? And if you're trying to lose weight, and like
The last time I wanted to be as hungry any time of my life.
right. I mean, so like protein's the ticket, like to make it happen. So it's pretty cool.